Okay, boys, let's talk about Phoenix as we make our way through the offseason here. Hey, the preseason's going to be here before we know it. Anyway, the Suns find themselves in the interesting position of they've moved a whole bunch of future picks. Their team salary is very high, as in they've got the highest payroll in the league this year. They have KD and Book, and yet there are a number of teams that we would believe are better than them in the West. And around that, you're hoping for a healthy Beal. Budenholzer's here now, and I've already talked about the Suns in other videos throughout this offseason, so for the sake of not repeating myself for, 7 minutes here, let me get the obvious stuff out of the way. They have to get more threes up. You know Budenholzer's going to preach that. No, they don't have to lead the league in threes, but they've got to take more. They were like 25th in threes last year. They took 26 threes a game versus the Wolves in round one. They could also use some more shots at the rim. And also, them having Tyus and Monte Morris now should hopefully fix the turnover problem for them last year, or at least help it. And then those two should allow KD, Book, and Beal to do a little bit more as off-ball players. A little bit more. Now, we'll see how Coach Bud does the lineups, because I imagine sometimes you're going to need to be a little bigger on the perimeter, which is when you would look to Royce or Grayson, whereas sometimes you might need just more ball handling, and that's when you're going to look to Tyus or Monte. This team needs to be elite on offense. So anyway, I decided to take a look at some of these shot attempts from Book, KD, and Beal in the round one matchup against the Wolves. And just to recap, I mean, KD and Book both had their best game of that series when it was already a 3-0 series, so take that for what you will. And Beal popped off in Game 3, but besides that, it was whatever for him. And those three on the court together against the Wolves had an offensive rating of 107 in round one. Not a good number. Anyway, took a look at a good amount of their shot attempts in that series. There are so many pull-ups. There are so many simple DHOs that could lead to a pull-up. There are so many, like, KD trying to make a fadeaway 2 over Jaden or Cat or Nikhil or Ant, or a play where Book has got to create something with like 7 seconds left on the shot clock. And really what I was looking for is just, okay, how many open catch-and-shoot threes am I going to see? How many open shots at the rim that somebody created for somebody else? Like, how much of that am I going to see? And how much am I going to see of one of these three just trying to create something out of a tough situation? And, like, yes, obviously the Wolves' defense was great. Ball pressure, whether it was the times where they thought they could get Gobert on a switch, where he guarded the perimeter, like, amazingly in that series versus the big three. The Wolves were great. The Suns didn't have a chance. The point I'm getting at is, like, there are some plays within all that. There are some, like, Book is the second screener for Beal, which then, like, throws off the Wolves for a second, and then from there, maybe Book can get an open shot, or, the ball's ping-ponging around, it gets back to Beal for an open shot, or AD screening for Book, which the Wolves were mostly just switching and saying, we're still going to play you tough, but, like, at least that's a little something extra. Or maybe Beal cutting to the rim as Nurkic has the ball, like, on the free throw line. You need more of that, basically, because, yes, the shot making of the big three is great, but you're just making it too hard for yourself, especially against a great defensive team, which, like, you're going to see if you want a shot at a title, which you have gone as all in on as you almost possibly can. I mean, OKC's a great defensive team. Obviously, the Wolves are. Dallas is. As I keep saying, we'll see the lineup stuff with Najee and Clay. The Nuggets were a top 10 defense this year. Of course, they lost KCP. We all know that. So they just got to find more ways to create open stuff for each other. And yes, them getting up more threes just throughout the process of all of this, and then hopefully them generating more shots at the rim to just diversify their shot chart to where they're not super duper over the top mid-range heavy, can help with some of this stuff. And again, getting a couple extra reliable ball handlers and decision makers and Tyus and Monte can hopefully clean up some of the turnover stuff. But it still comes down to, for this team, if in clutch situations it is one of the big three, probably more so Book or KD, just dribbling the air out of the ball and then having to take a tough 16-footer, then it's going to be really tough for them to get to where they want to. Specifically playoffs. Regular season, they'll be good. Now, the cynical way to look at that is, Coach Bud, the one thing in Milwaukee, with all the things they did well between rim protection and transition defense and spacing the floor out for Giannis and all that stuff, their half-court offense would sometimes just fall into not a whole lot happening. I mean, the Middleton-Giannis two-man game was what kind of got him through those problems in the finals. So we'll see there. As far as Bradley Beal, I mean, he's missed a decent amount of games the last 3 years. This previous season, it was mostly a back injury that had him out for the first few months, and then when he missed pretty much the whole second half of a Wizards season 2 years back now, that was a wrist injury. And then his last year with the Wizards, it was kind of a mix of like hamstring, knee, health and safety. Remember those days? So they're going to need him. Parts of the year they were asking him to be more or less of a ball handler. I think Beal is the easiest one to imagine just getting more three-pointers up for them, because remember the Wizards days? I mean, he was up to like 7, 8 threes a game. Now, some of those were off the dribble, I get it, but I would like to believe that Beal for this team can do a lot better than 4.5 3-point attempts per game. You'd like to think that he could get to, 7 or 8 a game, a lot of it on catch and shoots, movement, all that stuff. Anyway, as for the rest of the team, you got Royce, and the thing with Royce is, he is more active on offense than your typical guy who's labeled 3-and-D, right? You see it in the assist numbers, whether he'll be screen setting, whether, he's willing to, attack off the catch a little bit, keep the offense moving. And then, of course, he's got the pump fake into the sidestep 3. Grayson was one of the most efficient guys in the league this past season. Nurkic is cool, he does the dirty work, and he can get their big 3, cutting a little bit more when he can get the ball in the elbow. You're not going to run that for your whole offense, but it's an extra thing to go to. I guess I can talk about the defense now. They were 13th in defensive rating this past year. KD, maybe an underrated season defensively, where between switching, help defense, he was good. And when KD and Nurkic were on the court together last year in about 1,600 minutes, they had a defensive rating of 111, which would be equal to 5th, 6th defensively in the league. So basically, when they had their biggest lineup out there, they were pretty good on defense. We saw Book in the Olympics embrace the dirty work, being an on-ball defender, all that. And then Beal had to do a bit of that this previous season as well. And as we all know, Coach Bud has had a number of really good defensive teams throughout the Bucks and the Hawks. Yes, that Bucks team was loaded defensively. And it'll be something for Bud to figure out, just the minutes around the big 3 with Royce or Grayson for a little more size, or Tyus or Monte for more ball handling. So we'll see how all that goes, but yeah, I think the dream template for this team is one of the best offenses in the league, and then pretty good on defense. And really, that's just 4 things, right? It's a more modern shot chart, even if they have a couple of great mid-range shooters, less turnovers, a healthy Beal, and then as many sets on offense that you can realistically get to that are not just one of these guys having to make a tough 17-footer in an ISO. And we'll see if either one of their draft picks ends up making a difference for him. Ryan Dunn and Oso Ighodaro. Ryan Dunn especially is one of the best defenders in his class. Offensively, well, there's a reason he went in the 20s, but I do think he'll get an opportunity. So anyway, that's the Suns. Oh, last 2 things. If Okogie could get a 3 ball, that would be nice, and Mason Plumlee is here now.